They laughed at me in front of everyone, told me I'd never succeed, fired me over a mistake I didn't even make, and yet, the next week, they were begging for my help. But this time, I had all the power. If you've ever been underestimated, laughed at, or treated unfairly, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video, and comment below if you love seeing karma served the way it should. This story proves that justice doesn't just happen, it's crafted. I had always been the quiet one at work, the kind of person who took notes, stayed late, and kept my head down. My name is Emma, and I worked as a project coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm. I was good at my job, meticulous, reliable, and often going above and beyond. But in an office filled with egos, my diligence was seen as weakness. It all started during the rollout of a major campaign. Our department head, Karen, was infamous for her temper and her favoritism toward the senior team members. I noticed she would often take credit for the work of juniors while publicly humiliating those who challenged her. I'd always managed to stay under the radar, until one day, an incident changed everything. I was asked to prepare the presentation for a critical client pitch. I spent hours compiling data, analyzing trends, and formatting slides down to the last detail. The night before the meeting, I emailed the presentation to Karen for final review. That's when things started going wrong. The next morning, I walked into the conference room with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Karen was already there, smirking, while the client representatives glanced around politely. I set up my laptop ready to present. And then it happened. "Emma, this is awful," Karen sneered. "I don't even know why you're allowed to touch this. Who prepared this? It's a mess." My stomach sank. I wanted to speak up, to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. The client frowned, scanning my slides, confused. Karen took over the presentation with practiced charm, but every time she glanced at me, I felt a sting of humiliation. By the end, the clients nodded politely, but I knew the damage had been done. That afternoon, I was called into our. They said the presentation had reflected poorly on the company, and just like that, I was suspended pending review. The humiliation burned, not just from Karen's words, but from the casual way my hard work had been obliterated. I went home that night, feeling powerless, angry, and determined. I couldn't just let this slide, not because of the suspension, but because Karen and the team had underestimated me. They had treated me as expendable, as a quiet tool for their convenience. And now, I would make sure they learned exactly what happens when someone you underestimate decides to fight back. For the next few days, I stayed calm, observing, gathering information. I knew I needed a plan that was smart, precise, and utterly satisfying. Revenge wouldn't be about chaos. It would be about proof. Proof that I was competent, clever, and capable of turning the tables. First, I reviewed the client files, emails, and internal communications. I noticed discrepancies, small errors, and misleading statements, most of which Karen had overlooked or manipulated to make me look incompetent. I began documenting everything, creating a detailed record that showed the truth behind the so-called failed presentation. Next, I reached out to a few trusted colleagues who had witnessed Karen's favoritism firsthand. They were hesitant at first, scared of retaliation, but once they saw the evidence, they agreed to support me discreetly. I wasn't just building a case, I was building a narrative they couldn't ignore. Then, I took my plan to the next level. I knew that the company's upper management valued results over personalities. If I could present my evidence directly to them, it would be undeniable. But I needed a hook, something dramatic that would capture their attention and make Karen's lies impossible to defend. I prepared a corrected version of the presentation, showing the campaign's potential if executed correctly. I included additional insights and strategies, demonstrating not just competence, but innovation. Every slide was crafted to highlight my contributions while subtly exposing Karen's mismanagement. On the day of my comeback, I requested a meeting with the CEO under the guise of discussing the suspended project. Karen, of course, assumed it was just another attempt by me to defend myself, one she could easily dismiss. She even smirked when I walked past her office, whispering to a colleague, "Let's see what she does this time." The meeting started calmly. I opened my laptop, launched a presentation, and began speaking. At first, I described the initial challenges with tact, never mentioning Karen by name. Then, as I progressed, the narrative shifted. Each error, each oversight, each misleading communication was illustrated clearly. I showed how the campaign had been sabotaged not by my incompetence, but by negligence and favoritism. The CEO's eyes widened as I navigated through the slides. I saw the recognition forming suddenly. The pieces clicked into place. I wasn't attacking Karen personally. I was presenting facts, indisputable evidence. Every misstep she had tried to pin on me was now highlighted, with context and proof that left no room for denial. Finally, I unveiled the corrected campaign strategy, showing how it could be salvaged and lead to measurable success. My voice was steady, confident, every word a contrast to the humiliation I had endured weeks ago. The room was silent, and for the first time, I felt the power shift entirely into my hands. Karen tried to interject, to explain, to deflect, but it was too late. Every argument she made was countered by a slide, an email, a timestamp, or a piece of documentation. Her face flushed with disbelief and anger. The CEO leaned back, stunned, and asked me, "Why wasn't this done this way from the start?" I smiled. "I did my best," I said calmly. "The rest? Well, the rest wasn't under my control." By the end of the meeting, Karen's reputation had taken a significant hit. I wasn't asking for her punishment. I simply wanted acknowledgement and justice. And I got it. In the days that followed, I was reinstated, my suspension lifted, and my contributions formally recognized. Karen, once untouchable, became cautious, her smirks replaced by forced politeness. Colleagues who had laughed at me now looked at me differently, some with respect, others with a hint of envy. But the most satisfying part, watching Karen try to navigate the office politics she had once controlled, now under the weight of the truth she had ignored. She couldn't undo what had happened, couldn't reclaim the humiliation she had inflicted on me, and every attempt to undermine me further only highlighted her desperation. Through this, I realized that revenge isn't about cruelty, it's about strategy, patience, and demonstrating competence when others doubt you. It's about taking the power back, without stooping to the same pettiness that tried to bury you. Looking back, the incident taught me something important about self-worth and perseverance. Being underestimated doesn't mean you're powerless. Being humiliated doesn't mean you're weak. And when justice is served thoughtfully, it can be sweeter than anyone expects. So, what's the real lesson here? Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never dismiss someone's dedication. And never forget the truth has a way of coming out, especially when it's presented with clarity, confidence, and courage. If you loved watching karma unfold in the most satisfying way, hit like, subscribe, and share this story. Comment below with the time someone underestimated you and how you proved them wrong. Let's celebrate the power of standing your ground and winning the smart way.